Welcome everybody to GoLocal Live. I'm Josh Fenton, CEO and co-founder, and it is Thanksgiving Eve. It's Wednesday, and that means it's the best time of the week. It's Mott and Chace time, and we've got Robert Rutley, the man, the myth. Mr. Rutley, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So we had a story. Ben Scungio, one of your counterparts, was on last week, and he talked about the difficulty with inventory, how fewer houses are on the market this year. We also know that interest rates are higher. A lot of doom and gloom, less here in this market, where the market's been very stable from a price standpoint. Walk us through the flip side of some of this doom and gloom. Walk us through, how do you buy a house in 2022 in November? Where do you find a house? How do you finance a house? And how do you have some sense of, listen, I'm not in a putting myself in a financial distress.
Well, you know, tragedy and doom and gloom are the things that people pay attention to, and that really gets people's interest. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. It could be real estate. It could be anything else. So there is always a bright side to everything that happens, and every market in real estate always has its pluses and its negatives. You know, in the past 2 years, we had a very robust real estate market where people were buying absolutely everything, and people were able to sell homes at astronomical prices. But there was always a negative side to that. Buyers were paying too much. You know, and there was so much competition, and if it wasn't your personality type to really throw everything in, you know, it wasn't going to work for you. Well, right now we're looking at somewhat of a more balanced market, where I think that buyers actually have a better chance of purchasing properties, especially when they don't have to throw everything at it in 6 to 8 hours into a deadline. So, you know, interest rates are a little bit higher. They peaked up above 7%, a couple of weeks ago. They're back under 6, I think 6.6%, somewhere around there right now. Interest rates are what they are. If you need to buy a home, buy a home. Interest rates change within 3 to 5 years every single time. They don't continue to grow more than 3 years at a pace. Refinance that property.
So let's go to the inventory question first.
Sure.
There's, depending on which number you want to use, there's about 8% less inventory than there was a year ago. What does that mean for the average person? Because the average person isn't buying all of the inventory, they're just buying a single house. So while the total universe may be smaller, what's out there right now?
I think we've got 5 homes for sale on the east side of Providence right now, but we're also a day before Thanksgiving, so things are going to be a little bit slower. And while we have less inventory, that is still making the market move at a faster pace. Last month we were up 7.3% in prices, even though we had a huge slowdown from the year before. So there's still growth in the market. Supply and demand always drives that. I don't think that we're seeing multiple offers on every property. Probably about 25% of those properties instead of 90%.
So is it a little bit of actually a better time to purchase from the buyer's standpoint? Because listen, that house is on the market for $400,000. It's been on the market for 4 weeks. If I make an offer, maybe at $390 or even at $400. I'm probably going to get that house.
Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, and in fact, I can't do basic math most of the time. But I can tell you that, if you purchase a property now and your mortgage on a monthly basis is going to be a little bit higher, as long as you can bear with that for a few months to a year, I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised when you're able to refinance and have a house that you did not have to bid up and over for. And when you refinance, you've got a lower payment and you're going to be much happier.
Okay, so Mr. Rutley, I do want to clarify one point. Not a mathematician, but a degree from Michigan and a degree in computer science, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so just full disclosure, you probably can get a calculator out and pound those numbers pretty good.
Computer engineer, not yet. But
Okay, let's go to the second part. You know, there's less inventory, but there's not no inventory. And maybe on the east side, there's only 5 properties, but by March, there's going to be 25 properties, right?
Right, and we're going into that cyclical market that we get in the fall before the holidays until say February 15th or March. Depending when the weather breaks in the spring, we will have another robust spring market, and that happens every year. For the past couple of years, that robust spring market went all the way until September. So it'll probably be a little more standard, March to June. But there are going to be a lot of houses listed. There's going to be a lot of properties, a lot of options for buyers, and there should be some competition. So I still think that even though there is doom and gloom across the United States right now, and even Lawrence Yun from the National Association of Realtors, the chief economist over there, is saying that the bottom will happen in 2023. I think the bottom is going to be different for every place. And Providence's bottom for real estate is probably going to be maybe a little less price growth. But I don't think property values are crashing. I do not think there's going to be a lot less competition, but I think there will be less competition.
And then let's talk about that house that does go on the market in December or January. Those people, those sellers, they're motivated. They've either gotten a job somewhere else in the country and they need to sell their house to be able to buy a house, or a relative has passed away and the house is going into some kind of probate, or it's in some level of distress level that the owner needs to sell ASAP to keep sort of their financial house in order. Are those maybe sometimes the secret of people's success?
Exactly. I think that if you're looking for a property in the winter, the people that are selling that property are selling it then because they need to sell it. And if you're buying a property at that time, you're buying it because you need to buy it. There's probably not a lot of inventory. So I think sometimes those winter transactions are some of the cleanest, easiest, and most comfortable for both parties.
Okay, so that's inventory. Let's talk about pricing. Pricing, pricing's not moving. It's bouncing around between about 405, it seems like, and about 420 for the median price of a single-family home in Rhode Island. It is 100% increase in the last 7 years. So if you bought a house 7 years ago in Rhode Island, you paid a median price of $200,000. 7 years later, you're selling at 400,000, 405, 410, whatever it might be. That's better than you can do with crypto these days, right?
Well, it's a lot better than you can do with crypto these days. Yeah, I mean, I think the growth of the price of properties is still going to continue to grow. It's just not as a quick a pace as it has been. I wish that 7 years ago I had bought up a whole bunch of single properties and fixed them up. But my skills as a property flipper are absolutely awful. I'm a much better real estate agent. It is what it is. Unfortunately, wages have not increased by 100% over the past 7 years either.
No, they have not.
Yeah, so it is tough for one segment of the population to purchase entry-level homes.
Okay, let's go to the third piece of this, which is financing. Is it tougher to get a mortgage, or is it just more expensive to get a mortgage?
It's not tougher to get a mortgage. It is more expensive to get a mortgage. But here's the thing. Right now, your mortgage lenders will be your best friend because they need the business. They're 1099 employees just like the rest of us in real estate, and they don't make money unless they're helping you find a mortgage. So they will bend over backwards to try to get you a loan in any way. So that is probably going to be your star player if you're buying a house in the near future.
And then let's talk about it. Listen, out of 08 and 09, there was sort of, a lot of complaints about how the mortgage industry worked and what type of products they were allowing certain type of home buyers to utilize to be able to finance their homes. Those sort of ridiculous, boundless restrictions have been replaced by a much more rigid and a much more appropriate financing structure where the banks and the mortgage companies are pretty diligent on matching up what you can borrow versus the amount you can borrow to the appropriate borrower. Let's talk about that for a second. And is that does that give you some confidence, especially as a first-time buyer, that I got a mortgage and I got an adjustable rate mortgage for 5 years, so my interest rate's a little lower, but I'm worried that the so-called bill will come due before interest rates come down. Walk us through that a little bit.
Well, I think, the consumer protections that are out there for mortgage lenders are a lot stricter. There aren't any, wacky mortgage lending options going on that are going to really hurt consumers. And every lender that I work for or work with will be giving every potential buyer as much information as they can get. There are no con men in mortgage lending anymore. There's no room for them. They just do not survive. So if somebody buys something, and they use a 30-year conventional, we're talking 6.6%. Well, a lot of people are totally comfortable with that. It's still not a terrible rate, but there are other options if you need to have more buying power, or you feel comfortable with a lower rate. So you can buy points down on that rate, or you can create a different kind of mortgage plan, which could be a 5 or 7 year adjustable rate mortgage, where you get a lower mortgage rate for the first 5 to 7 years. And it stays that way. And then if for some reason the mortgage or interest rates don't go down, there's a potential for yours to increase. It is not a balloon payment, though. It is restricted to increasing a certain amount of points per period. So if you've got a 6% interest rate, and for some reason, the world goes into the garbage can, and you've got to start paying more, maybe you're going to pay 6.25, 6.5 for a couple of years. But that generally does not happen. Historically, interest rates do not grow for more than 3 years at a time, and usually there's that, just like in real estate, cyclical interest rate that's available.
Let me ask you one question. I wanted to do a 30-year mortgage,
Sure.
and I can buy down some points, so I can take that, 6.6 and buy 2 or 3 points. Can I finance that fee that I'm required to pay for those points?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if you're in a situation where a seller really likes you and wants to sell their house to you, you can ask for them to provide money to you as a part of a closing cost to pay for those points.
Got it. Okay. So what should people be thinking about? Listen, there's a lot of anxious people who've been wanting to buy a house for 3 and 4 years. They haven't been able to because of prices, COVID. They moved to a new market and they've been renting, but they went into COVID with no children. They've now got 1 or 2 children, and they simply need a bigger space. What's your advice to them over the next 3 to 6 months?
I mean, 3 to 6 months right now, we're talking about winter. I think you've got a lot more time to think about the process, a lot more time to think about whether you want a particular house. You don't have to make quick decisions generally. So get out there and start looking. You can make offers if you like, but you're not going to be forced into a really fast-paced market like we've been in the past couple of years. There's a lot of time to think about and make really good decisions.
Robert Rutley from Mott and Chace Sotheby's International, thank you so much. Listen, have a happy, merry Thanksgiving. Enjoy your family and friends, and have a healthy one. On that healthy scheme, if you haven't gotten a flu shot, get one. I'm getting mine on Friday. If you haven't gotten the last variant's booster shot, would be number 5. You should run, don't walk. Nobody wants to be in the emergency room at Rhode Island Hospital or any place else. There's 8 to 10 hour waiting periods most days, and heaven forbid a small child gets sick. It is a very, very difficult situation at Hasbro's Children's Hospital in Rhode Island, and that is just wearing out the staff and really creating a lot of problems from a healthcare delivery standpoint. Have a great Thanksgiving, everybody. Stay safe. We have a lot more of news coming up. There's a major investigative piece today on GoLocal about the Rhode Island State Police. There's changes in the leadership at the Diocese of Providence and much more. Thanks, everybody.